So we're going to do a little kind of off-the-cuff video because this is a capture card that I've been using for streaming for last couple of weeks. And I wanted to do a video on it because I made some modifications to it because this thing gets kind of hot under the collar when it's working. And it doesn't do any processing. This is like an Elgato HD60S where it's just a dongle that really passes HDMI video out through USB into your computer. So I wanted to take a look at this because it ran really hot and it's not even doing anything other than feeding the video into my computer. So I kind of took it apart on one end. I looked inside and saw what I thought was a little bit concerning, if I can find where I stuck the damn thing. But yeah, here it is. This is all that was keeping it nice and cool. This little heatsink for a chip. Now, I don't find this to be sufficient. On top of that, it was kind of like just tacked on there with a really crappy thermal material. I don't know if this is like thermal adhesive or something, but it was like sandwiched on there kind of like with the thickness of an Oreo. So I feel like the thermal material was just acting as an insulator versus acting as a transfer material. So this thing got very heat soaked very quickly. And I'm wondering if this would help the audio drops because maybe that's an artifact of it overheating. I don't know. But let's show what I did to this thing. So as you may be able to see here, I've got a much bigger heatsink in there. What I did was I took the Northbridge heatsink off of one of my old motherboards I'm never going to use again, and I filed it down to fit the clearance of this case. Now, I only did it exactly such that what is basically happening here is the top of this blue chassis is keeping tension on the heatsink itself and pressing it into the chip. So that's how this thing is staying cool and staying on there. That also gives the advantage of the heatsink contacting the chassis. I struggled to find the word there for a minute. So it can also pump some heat into the chassis as well. Not efficient probably, but I mean it's still a thing that it can do. Now what is probably really helping this is the holes I drilled in such that this thing can vent properly, because with the end caps on this, as you can see, there's really no room for air to get in or out. Through the ports, maybe, but that's not really high enough airflow. So this allows the heat to just come straight out of the heatsink into open air. It works really nicely, and I got a screw in here that prevents the heatsink from shifting around too much while it's in here. So currently this holds on pretty damn well, and to kind of like test this out, I tested it outside of the case just to make sure all that I've done didn't break the card, and no, it works perfectly fine. And I left it plugged in, running an input all night long, and then I checked the heat in the morning, and there wasn't much of it. So I think this is a success. Now, to answer a question that I know some of you may have, you may be like, but as you can see in there, this is bigger than the chip. You can't really see it, but assume you know. And what I did to protect the components from shorting out if they contact the heatsink is I used a bit of conformal coating. And a lot of you may actually have this in your house, but nail polish works perfectly fine as a conformal coating. I just put a layer of it on the board around where the heatsink was, and that's enough to usually isolate it from grounding out on the heatsink or contacting the heatsink and shorting out on something. And again, so far, so good. This thing has been working perfectly fine, and it doesn't get super hot anymore. It gets warm, but not like uncomfortably hot like it used to. So I'm going to call this a success. And again, I'm not sure how this is going to affect things in the grand scheme of things, if it's still going to have audio problems, or if it's still going to have little issues here and there. But I like to think I at least extended the longevity of this thing by doing this. So, till next time, I'll see you guys later.